resources of the project. They had about 350 staff that were divided up over 3 protected areas and 16 districts. It went from the coast, where we had a marine protected area, to the lowland rivers, up into the mountains of the Annamai Mountains, with protected areas, the 3 protected areas in different ecosystems. Very apparent at that time that the largest threat to natural resources in this area was illegal activities. So the thing that everyone wanted was capacity building and law enforcement. So we brought together numerous different organizations to develop an extremely comprehensive patrolling training. And we trained about 3/4 of the staff of the Ranger Force in really solid law enforcement training, covering the different patrol types, covering search and rescue, first aid, navigation, crime scene processing, all of the things that you need to do really good law enforcement. But despite all of that training, there was obviously something going wrong, because the people who were being trained were not then implementing their new skills when they got back to their job. So we realized that actually the managers did not have the capacity to know how to deal with this new set of skills that their rangers had. So we started developing a whole set of trainings about ranger management. So all the managers got trained over 2 or 3 different training courses on HR procedures and patrol tactics and how to manage the ranger force. And things still weren't changing. So we realized that the managers now had the skills to manage, but they didn't have the data with which to manage their force with. So we started looking at databases for the patrolling. I looked at all the different databases out there. We looked at CyberTracker and MIST and all of these other things, and realized that MIST was the best. So I sat down with the Ranger Force and started talking to them about MIST. But they were very, very adamant that Vietnam was a very special case, and MIST did not apply to them. So they wanted to develop their own database. So I spent about a year working with the national agency and the local provincial agency to develop a database. Just as the database was starting to get finished, I actually left that job and moved to Washington, DC to work across Asia. Predictably, when the driving force behind the process leaves, it kind of stops. So despite the fact that we were 90% done with developing a database for Vietnamese rangers, the whole process collapsed once I left. But now in my new role, where I work across Asia, supporting WF field projects across Asia, very much aware that we are using MIST in many sites, and that there is very much a standardized approach to protection and law enforcement. And you don't need standardized approaches in different countries. Yes, you can tweak things, but you don't need a different database country by country. The same database, if it's strong enough, it's robust, can be done everywhere. The other thing I learned from that whole process is one person cannot drive a process. This has to be something that has the longevity that outstrips one individual or one organization. So after about 6 months working in Washington, this whole conversation started between WWF and WCS about the whole idea of SMART, but MIST was reaching the end of its technological lifespan. So I was really excited to get involved. Because what we don't want to see is my story replicated in 100 countries across the world. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know how this works. We have really good systems in place that are currently working, need updating. So why not develop a new system that can be replicated all over the world? The other thing that is really exciting to me, and which is why I am so committed to SMART, is that we already have 6 really well-respected, large organizations that are behind this. They're putting their own funding into this and their own time into this. This, to me, gives us the clue that this really is a long-term project. And now we have some fantastic supporters on board. The Moore Foundation, USA, and SOS are all here to hear this today. But really, we are looking at this as a long-term process of support. And we don't want this just to be about the 6 organizations that are currently involved. We want this to be the global conservation community working together on this product so that we can replicate it everywhere, so that everyone gets access to this support. So with that in mind, I'm going to explain a little bit about where we have come from and where we are going with the SMART partnership. So it all started way before October 11, when we all got together and were talking about this for a couple of years. But we eventually managed to sign an MOU between us, which really stated how we were going to work together to develop the first model of the database. And this included pooling our financial resources and our technical resources. That MOU runs out once the first version of Smart software is released. So it is a short-term process. And as this says, December this year, the Smart version will be released. That's actually been delayed between 1 to 3 months, but it will be very early 2012 when the first version is released. As David said, we now have the beta version, and it's just about to start being tested in sites across Asia, Africa, and Latin America by the 6 partnership members. And that will be where we will figure out what bugs are still in there and what needs to be improved before the first version is released. The MOU runs out at the end, as soon as that version is released. What we want to do is figure out what we're going to do in the next phase of this program. And the next phase of the program, as far as we see it, is a global program. So one of the things we want to talk about today and have a discussion once we finish talking is really how do we bring in the rest of the global community, and what does the rest of the global community want from this database and this process. So in November we're going to be hosting a week-long business planning meeting for the Smart Partnership, and part of that will also be inviting a couple of other organisations who are very interested in joining the partnership but are not currently members. And that hopefully will give us a new view and insight into what other people are thinking and how we can change our approach to satisfy other opinions that we're currently not taking into account. The Smart Business Planning Workshop is also going to look at the long-term governance structure. It's going to put together a financial plan, and it's going to put together a fundraising and sustainable financing system. So this really is our benchmark for putting in the longevity that we need to make this a process. I don't like to call it a database because, as David explained, it's much more than a database. It's training materials, it's an online discussion forum, it's a website, and it's the database itself. So how are we going to manage this over the long term? How are we going to grow the training materials? How are we going to improve the capacity of the database? Currently, the core database is focused on law enforcement, but we want to, over time, turn this into a protected area management database. And as David explained, it is a software platform with a database within it, so people can develop their own plugins. They can expand the database how they see fit. If they want to manage tourist numbers, they can develop a plugin for that. If they want to look at which rangers have got the GPSs today, they can develop a little plugin for that. So we hope that this will be growing organically, and we need to figure out how we as a global community can facilitate that, to make sure the trainings are available for that, and that the website can support all of the needs of the global community. So as David explained, we currently have the 6 organisations who are our current members of the partnership. And we have a fantastic group of donors and supporters as well. We need to grow both of these, especially the members. We need to look at how we can bring in people from all over the world, bring in advice, suggestions from different places where we're not currently working, different issues that need to be addressed by the database. So some of the things we need to talk about between now and January or March is really what will the governance structure look like. Currently, with only 6 organisations, we have quite an easy governance structure to manage. If we're going to be bringing in a lot more partners, a lot more supporters, and potentially even governments, which is very much where we'd like to go with this, how do we have a governance structure that deals with those 3 very disparate types of stakeholders? As I say, we want to expand the membership as far and as wide as we can, and working with governments is our ultimate goal. Another thing that stands Smart out from the other systems that are currently there are it is a platform that can be rolled up. So it's not just a protected area database, it can be rolled up to a protected area systems database. So national ministries can use this to monitor the effectiveness of their protected area system, not just protected area manager at the site. So we also want to tie in a little bit more with lots of the discussions that are going on here with IUCN and WCPA around protected area standards and how we can tie this into being a monitoring tool for achieving protected area management effectiveness standards. And of course, the training is critical. We want to think about ways that we can train everybody that needs training. Potentially online tools are the way to go, but we want to explore all options, and we want your feedback today on what you think would work best for you in your current situations. But some of the things that the partnership really needs to look at are up here. So maintaining the software, we all know software gets bugs. How do we maintain a partnership that can deal with the debugging of the software over the time? And also updating the software as new ideas come in, as new technologies come in. We're already talking, for example, about how to get this software into mobile devices and tablets, so it can not just be collected in digital form in the field, but can also be SMS'd or emailed to the main database, so that you skip the step of having to get a paper data sheet and fill it in and then someone type it into the computer. The smart website will have a whole set of training tools, which will be in numerous different languages. So how do we maintain that? How do we adapt those training manuals and training tools as the software changes and as the software grows organically with the global conservation community adding to it? And how do we maintain the translation of those materials? Just a note here that the software and the training materials are all conservation commons, it's all freeware, so anyone can use them for free, anyone can change them, anyone can translate them. There's no copyright involved here, and there's no ownership involved here other than the global conservation community owning it. So what we are hoping is that if we will maintain, as a partnership, a current set of training materials which is up to date for the current database. But if people want to translate that, they're more than welcome to take that and translate it into another language. We only ask that it's then put back on the website for others to download. So we want the website to become a repository of all the materials out there in all the different languages and all the different approaches, so that there's very locally specific trainings out there that can be tweaked to local situations. So maintaining the website, maintaining these training materials, maintaining the software. Then also on top of that, we want a global discussion forum and support mechanism. If you're having problems figuring something out, who do you talk to? So we're talking about having an email listserv, but also a discussion forum on the website. So it's not just a matter of the smart partnership maintaining questions, but the whole global community can say, oh, I've had that problem, this is how I got around it. So how do we maintain a partnership with a strong governance system over the next 10, 20, however many years to maintain this global dialogue around monitoring of law enforcement and protected area management effectiveness? That's where we want to take it. We want to expand the database, as I said. This is just some ideas of additional expansions of the enforcement side that we're talking about. What we've been talking about so far is really anti-poaching patrols. Holistic law enforcement management is obviously much wider than that. How do you manage the information you're getting from informants around the park? How do you really look at the probability of violations where you haven't managed to get into? How do you know you've removed all of the threat? There's statistics out there to do that, but how do we automatically get that built into this software so that a protected area manager can just press a button and get a result rather than having to have a statistician on staff? How do we maintain good equipment and tie in new surveillance techniques? Lots of you have probably heard about the idea of conservation drones. How do we take information from all of these new ideas and get it tying into the database so that the database can adapt as conservation techniques adapt? Also, how do we take it way past law enforcement to support protected area managers? Some of the stuff we've been discussing, telemetry data, if you've got very high value species and you really want to know where that species is so that you've got very strong protection on top of it, can we think about inputting telemetry data? All the biological monitoring that everyone is doing, overlaying camera trapping data with occupancy data, with your patrolling data, so that you can really get a solid idea of how your patrolling relates to the biological targets that your protected area has set itself. Other ideas of monitoring could be tourist monitoring, community engagement. Some of you might have heard of the MOMS database, which is used quite extensively in Africa. Could we somehow computerize that and get that integrated into this system? So outside of the protected area in community conservancies, you could have the protected area manager also collating that data so that the protected area monitoring goes beyond the protected area boundaries into community reserves, community forestry concessions, etc. And that ties it into community resource use that the protected area managers might be managing. And then the very simple issues. David started to get onto this when he talked about building motivation by using this tool. There's the carrot and the stick approach to motivation and getting rangers to do their job. If you're literally showing an amazing improvement in capacity, that can be a really powerful tool, but also some individuals or some sectors might be really underperforming, and you can see that from this data. So actually linking the data in this database into performance evaluations, promotions, things like that. All of these kind of things. And also going on to competencies, you could link it into training programs for each of your staff. And you could monitor your whole performance staff through this. You could check who's running patrols or who's managing the tourist industry in a certain sector and what competencies do they have. All of these things can be calibrated over time. So the database really has unlimited potential to go as wide as we want it to go. The question really for us as the partnership is how much do we kind of manage that and how much do we just let that explode and let the global community deal with that? And these are the questions that we need to decide over the next few months so that we can put together a financial model so that we can actually maintain the database and the global partnership for that scope of work. So what next? All of you are, as we've said, everyone is welcome. We would love new members, whether it is organisationally, partner to partner, joining the partnership, whether it's just using the database in individual sites where you work. If government representatives, if interested in getting involved and learning more about it, and how we can actually get governments to take this up at the PA system level, everybody is welcome. And if you have any more questions about joining the partnership, getting involved in phase 2 or anything, David or myself are more than willing to talk to you. Our emails are on the brochures that are up here. We can give you business cards. But what we wanted to do now is open it up, A, for questions. I'm happy to answer any single question you have, but also we'd like to hear from you about where you see the needs for this, both in terms of the database, the training, the partnership. What would help you if we were to tweak our approach? How should we be outreaching? Where do you see this going that would support the work that you are doing? So we'd like to open the floor up for questions, comments, suggestions, whatever. So look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
So, and this is really important for us because we are moving into this second phase. And the second phase is really thinking about how do we expand the consortium and the partnership? How do we, the public release of the free software, the free training tools is going to happen by the end of this year. And will allow it. So how do we take advantage of the fact that this is public stock, this public stock and folks will be using it? How do we figure out what's working, what's not working when you do download the training and you do try the software? We need help. We're a small consortium at the moment. We've got some ideas about how we might do this. But one of the real reasons that we came to this meeting is to get a sense from a much broader community. What are the challenges that you face that you think that this process might help you solve? And how could you best help us to make sure that the software, the training, and the whole concept behind SMART helps you be as effective as possible? So just give us a sense of what you may be doing in your organization at the moment, and how you might think about using smart. Might you think about using smart? So Lily, when thinking in Jane Goodall, is this something that might be interesting to you guys?
Yes, hi, Lilian Peter of the Jane Goodall Institute. And we have been using monitoring tools, specifically using smartphones and tablets since. Thank you. We are primarily working with local communities, so we are a little bit kind of on another side of the equation, how you can bring the communities into the monitoring of lands outside protected areas and how they integrate it with monitoring inside protected areas. We have been using smartphones and tablets since 2009, developing community-based monitoring tools which are connected from the bottom to the cloud, so from the field to the cloud. If I look at this presentation, I kind of have two reactions. So first of all, I think it's incredibly useful, the body of knowledge which you were able to pull together